Hello dental friends, it's so good to see you again. If you're watching this video, you've probably just finished dental school and have started your foundation year, and in that case, congratulations. You've got a hell of a year ahead of you, and I wanted to give you guys some tips on how you can just smash that year and really make the most of it. Without further ado, let's get started. My first tip is to ask all your silly questions in the first 2 months. I'm sure we've all been in the situation where there's a question we want to ask, but we feel like it's kind of silly, so we shy away from asking it. I would argue that the question probably isn't silly, you're just asking it a bit later than maybe you should have. If you're in your first couple weeks, for example, and you see a patient come in, on the radiograph you can see some caries, but clinically you just don't see anything. Personally, I would say it's a good idea for you to call your ES in, just say to them, clinically, I don't see anything. On the radiograph, it seems like there's caries. Could you please just advise me on how you would distinguish between whether there's caries or not? You might feel a little bit silly asking that because obviously you're a qualified dentist, so maybe you should know what caries looks like. But at the end of the day, your ES is being paid to train you. This is a critical lesson you will need to learn at some point, so you may as well do it early on because you don't want to get to Christmas and not know what caries looks like. Frankly, I wish I'd called my ESs in more. I wish I'd asked them more silly questions because that would just mean I'd have a better grasp over the fundamentals, and that's exactly what this year is all about, getting to grips with those fundamental things which will make you into the best dentist you can be. The second thing I advise you to do is to log into your eportfolio every day. That's right, every day. For the record, I didn't do this. Maybe I should have, but thankfully my ES was very on it with the eportfolio and really kept me in check and constantly told me to update this, update that. A lot of people will say it's a tick box exercise, and to an extent I agree, but at the same time don't let that trivialise how important it actually is. The panel looking at your progression throughout the year and who are giving you your outcome scores really look at it so heavily. Some of the most organised people I know, way more organised than me, didn't get as good outcome scores as I did, and it's purely down to the eportfolio. If your ES wasn't as pushy as mine was with my eportfolio, thank you by the way Priya, I appreciate it, then you have to keep your ESs accountable, you have to chase them because ultimately one of you have to take responsibility for it. If they're not doing their bit, you have to badger them, you have to, you're going to be annoying but you have to. Number 3, look for your requirements and your case presentations from the very first patient. From the first patient you see after watching this video, I want you to assess every single one for a cobalt chrome denture and a resin bonded bridge. Your life will be so much easier if you get these done early on in the year. For my final progression report, a month before I finished FD, the panel said to me to get either an RBB or a cobalt chrome done in that time, a month's time, so a cobalt chrome was out of the question. Fortunately, I had an RBB which was ready to fit. If I didn't, the stress and that last month of FD would have been awful. Make your life easier, get those two done as soon as you can. The next point I want to dedicate to my buddy who I did FD training with. Number 4, find yourself a creche. From the very first day he said to me, Tam, this year is going to be difficult. I think we've got to say well done to each other every single day because we just need to support each other. This actually ended up being so much more important than I could have realised. This year you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're then going to have to reflect on those mistakes. Your ES might have to have a word with you over those mistakes. You might lie in bed awake thinking about those mistakes. It's only natural that those things can get you a little bit down after a while. You need somebody, ideally one person I think, who's just going to be eternally positive and is just going to say to you, you know what you're doing is hard, don't forget that. You did your best, you're learning from your mistakes, and you know what? You're the man, or woman. We did this for each other the entire year, and it really made a massive difference. I would have struggled a lot more had I not had him, so thank you very much mate if you're watching this. Number 5 is to start every appointment with the end in mind. This is important for a couple of reasons. Number 1, what's your patient come in expecting? Because if they want something and you can facilitate it by managing your time well, then I would, because generally that goes down quite well with patients. The second thing is this would stop you running late so much, which, full disclosure, I did run late a lot. But if, for example, you have an hour for a private composite, you need to break down your time into chunks, into little milestones throughout the appointment that you know you need to meet if you're going to be on time. For example, in the first 15 minutes, I want the patient numb and the dam on. In the next 15 minutes, I want my caries removed and my cavity prepared, and so on and so forth, so you know that you're not going to run late. If you get to halfway through the appointment and your dam's still not on, then you can maybe try and change tactic. For example, I showed you guys how I like to put on a dam really quickly. My fast food dam technique, which in my hands works really well if it's a 6 or anterior. With a 7 I struggle, but yeah, just change your technique so that you can try not to run late but still have a very good result for the patient. I will link my fast food dam technique somewhere on the top, wherever it is. I still don't know which side it is. Number 6 is to underpromise and overdeliver. I think this one's pretty obvious, but anytime I had like a molar endo or an extraction that was anything less than grade 2 mobile, when I'm talking about the benefits and the risks of the procedure, when I'm explaining it, I would say to the patient, this might be a bit of a tricky tooth, it might take me a little bit more time. If then you extract the tooth in 5 minutes, they're going to be like, you're not bad, son. And if it does take 40 minutes, at least you warned them. And they can say, you know what, that was a tricky tooth. My next bit of advice is to foster positive relationships with all members of the dental team. At some point this year, you're going to need a favour or help from every single member of the dental team. And it's human nature that really they're only going to want to help you if they like you. This one came quite naturally to me. I started in the practice and I was like, you guys don't know it yet, but you're all my new best friends. And in all honesty, I did love everybody in that practice, and I really feel privileged to have spent the year with them. You don't need to come off as strongly as I did, but bear in mind that consistent, honest appreciation goes such a long way. For example, shade matching is something I struggle with, but every time my nurse helped me and got the shade bang on, I would be sure to thank her and let her know that she absolutely smashed it. Appreciate everyone there for all the things they're good at, and you can't really go too far wrong. I would go so far to say that the thing missing most in this world is honest appreciation. It's not only teeth with TAM anymore, it's philosophy with TAM now. My final little nugget for you guys is, when treatments don't go well, don't kick yourself for it. We're not miracle workers, we're damage controllers. When we do a deep class 2 restoration or an endo, we're not fixing anything, we're just trying to buy time for the patient's tooth, because inevitably all of our treatment as dentists fail. The only way for us to ensure a really good prognosis for a tooth is for the owner of said tooth to not let it decay in the first place. Otherwise we are just doing our best to prolong the life of it, and that's it. That's it from me, guys. I hope these tips help you to have a really good year. If you have any questions or you want some advice, just DM me on Instagram. I'm really happy to help. I have a couple of other videos, one being the lessons I learned after 6 months of my FD year, and a more recent one about the mistakes that I made that you can learn from. I'll leave those linked at the end of the video. I've actually left general practice for this year. I'm working as a Max Fax DCT in Luton. I've got a lot of content planned which I'm hoping will be helpful or interesting to you, whether you're going to be a DCT like me or whether you're staying in general practice or you're a foundation dentist, etc. If all that sounds good to you, then hit the subscribe button and I will see you soon. Take care.